Well, that might explain why there's nothing coming out of it. For the head unit itself, we have 4 front screws, all Phillips.
Hi friends, welcome back to the shop for another episode on our Metro. And today is actually kind of a first. Instead of fixing the car, we're improving the car.
Yeah!
So anyone remember back in the 90s and, you know, early 2000s, you had your giant book of CDs that you had to flip through to find the ultimate song?
I do.
I'm going back to that.
We're going back!
Fortunately for me, I have an expert audio person in-house.
Ooh, let's lose
the expert?
Lose the expert or put expert loosely.
Audio. I have an audiophile.
There you go. There you go. Audiophile. Yes.
So what I have requested my husband, my wonderful husband, to do is to put a stereo in the Metro that has some of the nice modern touches, but also enables me to bring back the 90s. I want to be able to put my giant CD book in the car and listen to all of my old, ripped, questionably legal music.
One, I'm shocked that she still has it. I know that I certainly do not. So kudos for holding on to those memories. But I'm really excited about this one because as you could probably tell, we've got some cool upgraded things to go in. And as we've discovered, everything in the car is still original. So it's time for it to go. So we're going to do everything from the head unit to the speakers to the cabling, everything that we need in order to kind of bring it to where we are now in time. Much better quality and sound.
Complete with hands-free Bluetooth audio for all of those phone calls I can take after I fix the air conditioning or whatever is wrong with that.
Yeah. So let's dive into the table of goodies and walk through what we're going with and why. The links to all of these will be in the description box below. Very first item is the Metra 99-2009 to install the head unit into the car itself. And we have our main wiring harness connection, the 70-1782 from Metra. To make this job even easier, we actually picked up the Metra 72-4500, which are the actual speaker wire connectors. So this will plug into the OEM harness on the speakers and then have the aftermarket ends to go into the new speakers. Incredibly easy. Next piece are the Skar TX65. These are the 6.5 coaxes. All right, let's take a look at this beauty. I've been incredibly happy with all of the Skar products, and I've put them in everything from my cars to my motorcycle, and I absolutely love them. So let's move on to the final piece of this build, and that is the Sony MEX N5300BT for Bluetooth. Dana is a simple lady that just wants some cool tech, but loves some of the retro look, and this right here is going to give her everything that she possibly needs from an audio standpoint. It's 55 watts times 4, so plenty loud enough for the Skars that we've got. Because of the output, I'm not even concerned about adding a secondary amp right now. She may later on decide that she wants it louder, but we'll have to see. But one of the cool features that I love about this that's really kind of retro, that Dana really loved, was the detachable faceplate. Oh yeah, we're taking it back. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the original head unit. Big time Delco Electronics. This is so basic, even the CD player is blocked off So you can't use anything but the radio. But how does it sound, you ask? Well, let's check it out. Whoa! We have one station that comes in. So after a little bit of investigating, guess what I found? Only one speaker is working in this car. This is going to sound so good when everything is upgraded in place. So let's get started on the project. In the latest episode of While We're In Here, since Dana and I knew that we were going to be taking some panels off for the audio upgrade, we decided let's go ahead and pull all the seats out and take a look at the metal on the floor. It had not been cleaned in God knows how long, so went ahead and did all that. Good thing we did, because the sound deadening from the factory had become old, brittle, and actually was no longer sticking to the floor. So we pulled it all off and put down new stuff.
So in order to access our front speaker, we're actually going to have to remove the entire door card. Once you get the door card off, then and only then can you safely remove the speaker cover. In order to remove the door card, you got to pull things off like the handles, the little trim piece here. If you're lucky enough to have this, it just pries off very gently with the spudger, but you do have to remove the window crank. If you follow our Facebook channel, you will have seen the short where I learned how to do this from the factory service manual. You're just going to take your little bandana or shop rag and shove it up in between the crank and the trim piece, and you're going to compress the spring using the fabric material. One of our good friends called out that you probably want to put a baggie or bundle up your cloth so that that spring, when it comes flying off the car, gets caught in your fabric instead of flying, 3 bins over in your shop, and then you have to go trying to find it. So let's start with our window crank, and then we'll move on to the rest. And just like that, we have our crank and our little spring that I was telling you about.
I wanted to see a full-blown magic trick where it just disappeared.
Oh, I did make it disappear. Look, it's gone. So before I go any further, I'm going to put this spring back where it goes.
This gives you a visual of how that spring is actually holding it onto the door card.
All right, the next step is you can take your little trim, just gently set that aside. We're going to pull off these 2 tabs to access the screws behind them, so we can pull off the handle here. Just going to pull up gently with my spudger. They come right out. And now you have access to the Phillips screws holding this door handle into the door. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and set the trim pieces back in this for safekeeping. And set this to the side. Now, the last and final screw in order to pull the door card off is, of course, right behind your locking mechanism on your door. So you can unlock the door, and you'll see that little screw there. It's a Metro. They didn't waste any little special tabs or covers on it. Pull off that little tiny Phillips screw. Don't lose it. There we go. It's got 2 additional tabs holding it in place, so definitely come at it from the lock side to help those tabs bust free. And you will need to hold your door handle open to be able to remove this. So now with this gone, we can set that aside. And now we're ready to pull the door card off. As with all old shit boxes, cars, anything, from the mid to late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, take your spudger, start on the outside, and just pry off your door card, and then you'll lift it up and off the windowsill. Go all the way around. Once you've got all the tabs busted free, hopefully not busted.
Looks like we're already raining junk and dirt and
There's the
speaker pieces.
speaker pieces.
Well, that might explain why there's nothing coming out of it. This is also a great time to clean out all the junk. Wow.
All that junk up in that trunk?
We're in the front of the car here. Well, there's the rest of the front speaker. So we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing for the passenger side, and let's see what that speaker looks like. Well, that explains why the passenger door speaker was no longer speaking. It just absolutely blew it apart. Hey! Let go! Alright. Away it goes. For the rear speakers, we are not as lucky as the front door, where it's much easier. These grills are actually molded into the whole panel, so you have to remove this entire panel piece in order to access it. It is fairly easy, but you do have to take off the bottom pieces as well as regular push pins and screws that are along the way. Nothing is hidden. It's going to be fairly obvious once you start to take it apart on where it's actually still being held in. Alright, from here we have full access to all of our skin, so we're going to put in some more sound deadening, because right now clearly sounds like a tuna can. So we're going to seal that up a little bit more, and then while we're in here, we're going to go ahead and take this piece off. We're going to take off the rust, prime it, and then paint it. We're going to try to eliminate every bit of metal cancer that we can in this car to keep it around for a long, long time. Okay, here's the end result after we've taken this panel off. We put in some sound deadening up against the outer skins. We cleaned up the rust on that one panel and went ahead and primed it, painted it. Now let's go ahead and get rid of that dead speaker. And a great thing about these, there's no window components in the back, so our 6.5s will drop right in without any modifications. Okay, well, we ran into our very first issue with the new speakers. Now, when I was going through and actually picking out the speakers, I knew that 6.5s will fit in both the doors as well as the rear. So that's why I went with 6.5s for all. However, the 6.5s are considerably larger than the OEM, as one might imagine. And in the front, that does create a little bit of an issue. So with the OEM adapters that are on the doors, one, the speakers are just too large, so we have to take off this very back piece here in order for the magnet to be able to go all the way in the speakers to sit flush. But the bigger problem that we ran into once I figured that would actually work is the speaker terminals themselves and the size of the speaker actually hits the sheet metal of the door. So we're left with several options. The first is, hey, we go with a different 6.5 in the front. Not gonna happen. 2, we drill holes into the sheet metal of the door to accommodate the speaker terminals, making sure that there's clearance, nothing gets grounded out, la la la. I was leaning towards that way at first, but then I decided we don't need the 6.5s in the front. So I decided to go ahead and change it up and put 5 1/4 coaxes in the doors. Now, with that, of course, that created 2 other different scenarios. Let me show you the first one. Okay, so here's option number 1. We remove the OEM speaker cover. We drill new holes for the 5 1/4. It fits just fine there. And then we use the supplied Skar speaker covers. Well, that's the easy route to go. That's the option that I probably would have gone with myself. However, it's not my car, so I had to go ask the customer, Dana. And lo and behold, guess what? She did not want to go that route because she wants to keep the OEM look of it. So that leads me down the second and final option, and the one that I'm going to end up going with. So let me show you what we're going to do. Okay, OEM adapter, get ready to be married to Lexan. So I bought a sheet of Lexan from Lowe's. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to make an adapter for the 5 1/4 on this, mount it all, and then have the OEM adapters, the OEM doors, and you won't even know that everything is aftermarket. So it should look pretty good if what's in this noodle up here actually turns out pretty well. All right, we've got our stock OEM adapter traced out on the Lexan. Now we'll go ahead and get to cutting. All right, first step of the adapter for the adapter is done. Now we'll go ahead and cut out the hole for the speaker and then follow that with actually tapping and drilling out the mounting holes in the corners. All right, adapter ring is done. Only thing left now is to go ahead and pull off our protective sheets. We'll mount it to the speaker, and then we'll go ahead and size it up to the OEM adapter to see if there are any modifications that we have to make to it in order for it to fit perfectly. And complete. It actually turned out exactly the way that I had thought and had hoped it would. So perfect fit. Didn't have to do any modifications to the original on the back. We ground down just a little bit on each side to allow for the nuts on the back of the Lexan mounting screws. But other than that, everything fits perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and get this plugged in, mounted to the door, and test it out. Looking gorgeous. Man, these look so freaking good. One other thing that I did differently is I took the speaker wire that ran on the outside of this, sound material here, and I ran it inside the door itself, secured it with some zip ties in there, and then plugged it to the back of the speaker. I really had to do that for these new ones. To take out the head unit, we need to first take out all of the trim, and we're going to start by removing our ashtray. Just slide it out, and then we'll push the button down, remove that. That now exposes 2 screws on the bottom. We have a Phillips here and a Phillips here, and then we have 2 Phillips screws up at the very top. All right, now we'll go ahead and pull this off. if your cigarette lighter is plugged in, this is where you will disconnect it. For the head unit itself, we have 4 front screws, all Phillips. And then in the very bottom, all the way in the back, there is one more Phillips screw that is on a bracket. So we'll go ahead and take those out. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and slide our head unit out. Oh, look at this. Clear signs of either condensation from the AC or water leakage somehow. Hopefully it's the AC just leaking. Now, you're not gonna be able to pull this all the way out. You'll have to reach underneath to disconnect the actual harness from the head unit. You'll feel the clip and you'll be able to push up on it and then pull it out. That'll give you a little bit more slack to pull it out, and then disconnect your antenna wire. Now we are done with the brick. All right, this is your OEM head unit plug that you're going to reach underneath and push this little button right here to release it. And we'll plug our Metra harness into it once we get ready to plug the new head unit in. Well, as you can tell from all the rain hitting the roof, we've got some nasty weather. So what else do you do during that time? How about something equally boring, like wiring? Yay! Not really. But hey, this is going to be really, really easy. With the Metra kit, it is basically color for color. Everything matches identically. The only wire that we are not going to use on the Sony harness is the remote wire, since we don't have an external amp. So we're going to go ahead and solder these up on the bench, at least get this step knocked out. All right, all complete. Now let's go ahead and test the head unit, make sure everything works. All right, for our head unit install kit, because this covers a lot of different vehicles, there are modifications that we have to make to it in order to fit ours. Nothing major, but there's a lot of tabs and things that just need to be cut that aren't really needed to be there. So we're going to cut this one off here in the center. We're going to cut these 2 support bars out, and we're going to cut this one out here in the middle. Then we're left with our 4 corner brackets here that basically match up with the OEM head unit screw locations, and then we'll move on to the next step. When installing the single DIN radio like we're doing, one thing that is not mentioned in the book but will be required for the Metro is on the underside, these little pieces have to be cut off in order to be able to slide in all the way. So we'll take the Dremel to that and get rid of those as well. All right, with those cuts it slides in just perfect. Now I'll move on to the next step. All right, our next step is we're going to be taking off the metal sleeve from the Sony head unit and then inserting it in here to lock it down. Then we have all of these cut tabs that we'll leverage to kind of bend up and lock it into place. All right, now we'll go ahead and slide the radio back in. Should lock into place. Then we'll use our supplied trim ring from the kit. Once you have it in, if there is some extra wiggle into the head unit, just make sure, along with your top pins that you bent over, also bend over the sides for each one to include the bottom, and that should definitely hold it in place quite a bit. All right, so we are done with this. Now it's time to go ahead and hook it up and get everything back together. Okay, all installed, hooked up. We use the factory screws to go back in the factory locations. Now we'll go ahead and put in the ashtray and the trim panel piece. And all that's left is just to play it. And it's showtime. Headunit's going through its normal demo. So Dana says that this is a CD from 1999. Let's see what's on it. Let's test this new sound system out. Oh. Oh, there we go. All right, so one quick play to show you the speakers actually working in the doors, and shout out to my good friend DJ Doc Rock. Let's put in a little old throwback CD of his.
Huge shout out to my wonderful husband for choosing and upgrading and doing all of the electrical that I don't like to upgrade my little $50.
Hey, I think it sounds awesome, and
does.
the install turned out great. So if you are also crazy enough to own one of these, like this weirdo right here, and this episode helped you out, be sure to smash that like button. Let us know. Share your Project $50 story with us as well. And until next episode, take care, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.